Okay, I got this side tie rod end off. Go to my clamp. Bring it on over if I can stay on it. And look right across it evenly. And it's like 14 also, so that's good. 14, 14. I'm still in my lined up in the center. Remember, this is where the bolt went through. Center that to my little paint mark. Okay. So I'm gonna do my reman rack the same way. I don't think the reman rack comes with the jam nuts. I always like trading jam nuts because it's, if you ever done alignments, most of the time the jam nuts are all the same size, either a 22 or a 24. So these are a 24. And I use the pipe wrench to hold the tie rod when I break the jam nut loose, okay? Okay, I had to heat my nuts up, they wouldn't come off. I use MAP gas, which works pretty good. I didn't have to hold it on there too long. I do have a torch, just takes too much time to take it out, so I weighed the options. So I use a MAP gas, got them off, both of them off, okay? Now I'll get my new rack over here. And I'll set my input shaft the same spot, and then I'll put my jam nuts on roughly in the same spot, 14 inches on both sides, okay? Okay, pretty darn close. It's not in the corner of it, but it's on the side of the corner of it. Same thing with this one. It's not in the corner, but it's on the side of the corner. Okay, I put some anti-seize on my threads, and then I'll put on my jam nuts. Okay, got my jam nuts on there. 14. And 14. Okay. Usually what I'll do is I'll turn this all the way one direction, mark it where this stops, turn it all the way back the other direction, count the turns, and it was 3.5, okay? It was 3.5, and it ended here. So I went around 1, and then around 1/2, so that makes it 3 turns, and then half of a quarter, or half of a half would be a quarter, which would be a quarter, which would be right there, okay? That's usually what I do sometimes too, but I centered it, got on both sides equally, took them apart and made sure everything was still equal, and that didn't move, so everything should be perfect, okay? Where this one came out. Okay. You can put the tie rod ends on after you get the rack in there. Okay, because that way when you're going in, you might get stuck on the tie rod end. So just leave them off. When you get it all bolted up, then you can put the tie rod ends on. Okay. All right, next you want to remove these plugs. You know, there's 3 of them. You get the thread hole here, your return, and your pressure. Okay. Move these little plugs out of there. Put some anti-seize on your input shaft and go to your steering shaft and put some anti-seize in there too. Okay, get your rack inside there, get it centered. Now what you want to do is pick it up in the middle, and then you want to stick your big bolt down to the top. Stick it down to the top, and line it up with this hole in the rack, okay? When you got that hole lined up with the rack, you're holding it with the other hand, you got that bolt in there, and you want to put this bracket up there. Just bracket up there like this, okay? You got this hand, left hand on this bracket, right hand on the rack, right about here. Push it up, take your left hand and push this one underneath. the rack so it's inside here. You can see that hole lined up with that hole. And you can release the rack on the right side with your hand. And then go grab this bolt, the long bolt, that one, and stick it in there, okay? Now you can relax. That's holding the rack up. So now you can do the same thing to the other side. Stick the long bolt up in there so it goes through the rack hole. Get that bracket, push it up under there, and then stick your bolt through that hole. See? I got the bolt sticking through there. All I do is push the rack up and push my lower bracket on there. Okay. What you do is you'll hold the bolt with your left hand up on top, push it down so it's flush. Wiggle your rack and push this bracket up in there. Start your nut. Do the same thing on the other side. Push the bolt down. Start your nut. Hopefully you put some ASCs on those bolts. And then put your hand up there because there's a wire harness up there. There's no wire harness on this side, but there's one there. Just make sure it's not pinched underneath that bolt and that little holding fixture on the bolt, okay? All right, and then tighten those big nuts. Those were 24s, and the tops were 21 if the fastener holder came off. Tighten those up. Okay, those two are tight. You notice it brought the rack up to match the marks where the bolts were, okay? So now you can tighten these two up. Those were 18s. Okay, you got those two tight. Now all you need to do is your steering shaft, okay? Make sure you align the bolt where the bolt goes in by the U-joint into the slot on the input shaft, okay? Everything should be lined right up, okay? Mine went straight on. Okay? Mine went right on there. Perfect. Okay? Now I need to put the bolt in there and tighten it up. Remember the 10mm head bolt? I use a 10mm deep with a 3-inch extension and an air ratchet. Fits right over that lower radiator hose and slides it up. Perfect. Okay? Okay, put some Silk Glide on your lines and your O-rings, and you want to put your lower one in first, which is your return. Okay, and then we get that one in there, and we'll put our pusher line in there, and then make sure that this goes over the line to hold it in, and have your bolt ready to go on the retainer. See how they look? Yeah. Okay. So get them both. Get the bottom one started, which is the return. Get it in there, and then get the compression line in there. Make sure you got your little retainer lined up, and then push them in. Get the retainer on there, and put your bolt in there. Make sure you start it with your fingers first. Okay, and then run it down with your fingers. You're not just all of a sudden put an air ratchet on, snug it down because you might cross-thread it. Okay? What you want to do is tighten it up and then loosen it up a little bit so you can move your lines a little bit to where you want them. Okay? And then when you're done, then come back and tighten it up. Okay? Next is take the pressure line and push it into the back side of that fitting that goes into the power steering pump, okay? Put some lube on it. Make sure you push it in straight. Make sure it clips in, okay? Okay. I lined it up and I pushed it in, I heard it click. To help you out, is to make sure this sensor is pointing down. I'll get your line over here just the way it is, and then just push it straight in there and it clips right in. Now I'll get my retainer from my old ones and put them on there. Hopefully they're not too rusted out. See my bracket? Okay, I'll show you something now. See that? You gotta bend that up so you can separate it off this line. Okay, get a pair of side cuts or a screwdriver and get inside there and bend that little tab up. Got it bent up, so now I can just pry it open with a small screwdriver. Transfer your rubber from the old line and your bracket to the new one. And make sure you put it on the right direction so this will go up in there. Pretty sure it goes up in there like that. Might be like this. Okay. Okay. I got the bracket on there. Would have been nice if it would have came with the new one, or I would have put it on there before I put the hose up in there. But how would you know which way it goes? Well, but I got it. Now I just need to put my nut on. I put some anti-seize on my threads. I put my 15mm nut on there, and I'll tighten it up. Okay. This clamp is just way too rusted. Ain't gonna do nothing. I got some tube clamps. I put one on here, put it on there, fastened it, so we're good. All right. Next thing I want to do is shove my return line up there, and line it up to my reservoir and see if it reaches. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's not bad at all, you know? Nope. We'll see how that looks. Okay. Okay, it goes up to the reservoir pretty good. And right on the inside, these two brake lines came up through there. It's got this insulator on, which is good. So it's not gonna come over and hit the belt or anything. So we're good with that. I'll raise it back up. See, here it is. Remember this one? It went over to here to this piece down here. See, that's where I'm at, right there. That went up to that goes up to the reservoir on that hose. I eliminated this one. They want $100 for that stupid line, so I don't need it. It's just a cooler. I mean, it's supposed to help it cool. One thing it does is rust, creates problems. Okay, now put our oil deflector back on, and then oil filter. That's our oil deflector. Because our lines are almost done. So as soon as we get this on and our filter in, then we'll snug up that line at the steering gearbox. Remember at the rack? Told you to leave loose. Alright, now we're gonna do this. Okay, I got the oil shield on for the drain for the oil filter. Got the oil filter back on. I tightened up my line bolt on the rack. Okay. Now I'm going to thread my tie rod ends on. Okay. Put your tie rod ends on. Run them up so they touch. Line up your tie rod into the knuckle. And start your nuts. I always put anti-seize on my threads and on my tapers. Down both sides. And then tighten your tie rod nut. You want to take a pry bar and go underneath. And you want to push it up to hold that tie rod in there, tighten the taper so you can tighten the nut up. Because always sometimes the tie rod spins. Okay, so now you got those tight on both sides. Then you need to get your 22 millimeter wrench and tighten up your jam nuts. My mistake is a 24. So used to the old ones. Okay, this one you want to tighten it. And that was what the heck. Alright. This one you want to bring down. And the other one you bring up. Okay. So those are good. And now you can put your tires on and then put some power steering fluid in it and start it up and see how it is. For me, I still gotta do, I'm gonna cut out that section of trans line that go to the radiator because it's leaking and rusted. So I'm gonna go from here, from the trans, to the other auxiliary cooler right here. I'm gonna cut this off, and I'm gonna cut that off, and I go right there. And that'll eliminate the ones that go to the radiator. It'll be good for now until these leak, and then maybe the radiator leak can be radiator will be leaking by then, so I can replace the radiator with them. Okay, I got my trans line done. This one goes into the auxiliary cooler. It comes out of the auxiliary cooler and comes back over into the other trans line, okay? So that's that. All I need to do is lower it down, put tires on, and then put some fluids in it. Okay, I got mine all done. No leaks anywhere. I fastened my trans lines up to the shroud, fan shroud. I painted my other trans cooler lines, help them slow down from rusting. I'm gonna spray another coat on them so they, because it's soak in. I sprayed it extra thick. Okay, my tires are on. I torqued them to 140 foot-pounds. My fluid's good, my oil's good, my trans is good, power steering's good. So we're done. Hopefully I helped you with something on this. It was just a mess. If I helped you, please subscribe. That'd be great. Helps me out. I just like to see them going up and whatever. But I appreciate it. Thank you. Don't forget to put your air intake tube on. Goes in the defender, clips in the air cleaner. Don't forget your 10 millimeter headed bolt. Okay? Y'all have a good time. All right, thank you.